Welcome to Inside the 18, live from United Soccer Coaches Convention here in beautiful, very, very warm and toasty Kansas City, Missouri. I'm Michael Magid. With me, once again, 99 World Cup winner Saskia Webber. And joining us this time, because he finally found his coffee, is the one and only Pro GK Academy himself, Omar Zini. What's up, dude?
Not much. We only have 3 microphones, so you can't see it when you're listening, but Mike is handing me the microphone. It feels like an award show.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting the way I'm doing that, Omar, because I honestly feel right now, and as everyone could see who's watching this right now, Omar's also adjusting the volume. We've got a really high-tech system going on right here, guys. Omar, here, feel free, and hand up.
Mini train wreck.
Yes, you want to introduce the guest? Is that what we're doing?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. Why not? Let's introduce the guest. Guys, actually, we're a very, very special guest with us. And not only that, I'm just going to say a guest that Saskia has been bringing up over and over and over again on the podcast and said, you know what, maybe we should just have him on the podcast at some point. We have Dr. Bill Steffen with us. Dr. Steffen, thank you for taking all your time out of the day for this.
No, this has been a tremendous source of entertainment already, just watching everybody fix the mics.
I think I was saying don't have him on the podcast. Please don't bring Bill Steffen on the podcast. I wasn't saying bring him on.
Think of it as a challenge. Okay?
I think we are. Yeah, it's just gotta put the mic either. Just say put it in your hand. There you go.
I like it on the stand.
I'm sorry.
All right. This is wonderful.
Back to regular programming here.
Guys, for those of you guys who are tuning into this, this is not an audio visual podcast. This is not a show learning how to use an H6 Zoom recorder, because we would be failing at that. It's actually a goalkeeping program, and because of that, that's why we got Dr. Steffen on. Bill, why don't you tell some people out there who might not be familiar with kind of your background, a little bit of why you're here?
That's a good question. I have a kind of a long and varied background. I started off kind of as an undergrad playing university, and it was fine. I was happy with that. And the opportunity, I studied actually math and computer science. The opportunity came along to play professionally. I did that. And then from there, I got involved in coaching. And I coached at University of North Carolina, where I was referenced there by Tony DeChico. And Tony is the one that got Saskia and I together working at Soccer Plus camps for a number of years. And following that, I developed my coaching career and then began my doctoral work. I finished up with a doctorate in kinesiology with an emphasis in sport and exercise psychology. I ended up coaching at the University of Oregon. I started the program actually at the University of Oregon. I went and I assisted at UNCG, UNC Greensboro in North Carolina. Finished up my doctorate, and then I I coordinated the master's program in coaching education at Ohio University. I'm now at...
Omar's like, Jesus.
Oh, you want me just you? Okay, you
No,
want me
keep it going. Keep it going.
I'm just, the only reason why I express that is because when I talk about my CV, it's a very short-winded, very, very quick. This is going and going. I'm like, damn, okay, I got a lot of work to do.
Okay,
keep it going.
I finish my
CV? Your resume is destroying all of ours right here. I was like, can I just?
It doesn't mean I've done it. It means I'm old. All right, that's all.
My resume just includes basically they're like Inside the 18 podcast. I coached some youth clubs, and I'm headlining January 18th to the. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm an assistant professor at Wingate University, just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay.
And you just taught a class. You literally just taught a class.
I had a class this morning. Yeah, the beauty of Zoom.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I hope the students would say the same thing, but for better or worse, yeah, no, we're able to do that.
Are they allowed to show up in their pajamas, or is it like, do they have to be a little more formal?
Oh no, I said no. Okay. Here's my rules for Zoom. You can't be in bed.
Okay.
You cannot be in a car.
And you can't not put your picture up.
No, you have to enable your video and your audio.
Oh, Omar would be fun.
But Omar, that's just because your grandma's walking back and forth behind you cooking.
My family is, my grandma has no cues at all. She has no understanding of what's happening. I think she's losing her hearing for sure. So she'll see me with the headphones. She'll try to have a conversation with me. She'll have stuff in like the washing machine, the washing the dishes.
She just
put the drainer on, and I'm just like, what's going on here? So I stopped that.
Okay, here, I'm gonna fix this for you. All right.
Okay.
With Zoom, you can put up your own background.
Yes.
So your mom could walk by in
He
her
knows
nightie
that.
and boom, okay?
He knows that.
Just mute yourself, because I tell them all, mute unless I call on you, unless I
Yeah.
ask you a question. Keep yourself muted, so it's you answering us, not your grandma.
You're probably right.
But it's
we
because
can accommodate it.
she's probably got more followers than we do. Everybody, she's so famous at this point.
I will say, I think even him explaining what the rules are, you look like a nice guy, but I feel like you have a mean streak to you. I just feel like as a professor and as a doctor, you kind of have to turn it on. There's a switch that you turn on.
No.
And Sus can probably attest to it.
I have standards.
He will play. He will play some jokes on you.
So we need to hear a little about this, because Saskia was saying when she was like, "Oh, we're having Dr. Steffen on, we're having Bill on this afternoon. Oh boy, he's got some stories." And we're like, I'm like, here's this wonderful rundown. She's like, that's great. She's like, he's gonna do about 2 stories on me though up front first. Though.
Well, the bottom line is, I never could get away with anything in life. Working with him.
Well, no, you couldn't. But that's okay. All right. Do you remember?
But you had they were great jokes. They were great.
Yeah. Sometimes we didn't even set them up. You set them up.
Yeah, I know.
Do you remember in Houston, right?
Oh, God.
Very, very hot. We're doing a camp at Rice University in Houston. Fields aren't great. We'll just leave it at that. Okay.
I know the
Hot,
story.
But it's
hot
very, very
in
hot.
Houston
hot.
on fields that aren't
In
great
the
sounds
summer.
literally like
It's
a
a
nightmare.
summer. No, so
No,
listen
it's
to
summer.
this.
It's
Okay.
hard. It was a challenge. It was a challenge.
This is a story
So
that follows me
Saskia
around my entire career.
Is sitting in a long sleeve goalkeeper just going like, damn, why are these jerseys have long sleeves? Give me a pair of scissors. And the trainer gives her a pair of scissors. She cuts the sleeves off.
It was the first
So-
person to make short sleeve goalkeeper shirts. I just want everybody to know that.
Yeah, okay.
And it was
you were
the
the
Adidas
first person.
thin one with the 3 stripes right here, the
Yeah.
big ones. Okay.
Oh my god.
But you were also the first person in a short sleeves jersey to do front smothers on Rice's field for a pressure training exercise.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I saw the sleeves go, oh, okay, Saskia, I'm going to show you why they have
Why
long
there's
sleeves.
yeah. So him and Tony made they're like, here we go again, front smother, and it's like hay, right?
Yeah,
It's
on
dirt.
top of asphalt.
And they're these little bugs called chiggers or whatever. They get in your skin, and then they it was
Wait,
crazy.
what?
And I just kept going and going. And I come up, and my arms were all bloody and everything. That story has followed me around. And then I was like, okay, I get it. I get it. Why
After
we
the
have-
third one, she got it, but we wanted to reinforce it for the kids. It was an important lesson.
Omar, I remember you when you were a young player that some of those fields that you were training on right there, and they were making you do those finishing drills, that sushi clinic, what they called it.
Sushi.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, I can't beat that story, but we had fields where they tried to tell us that it wasn't a parking lot prior, and we would know like we saw them laying the grass out. You can't lie to us. And our goalkeeper coach would just be like, "Look, I understand it's not good, but just keep on doing what you got to do." And by the end of it, like my mom was so mad. All my pants
Ripped.
torn.
Yeah.
I had bruises. It was like one of those where you kind of get to the next level. So I moved to the Galaxy Academy after, and it makes you appreciate a little bit more the grassroots. And I think now that I coach a little bit more, I mean, it's still like, look, I've been through it, and I can tell you that it's gonna be okay. Like it's not gonna.
Yeah.
It'll be
No,
fine.
I see young kids and they come out all padded up and they're like on this immaculate field. I'm like, you're okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be all right.
But the nice thing to these kind of stories, obviously they're fun for us stories because we've lived through them. But teaching kids, deal with it.
Yeah.
Deal with it. It's okay. Yeah.
I got through it. I didn't complain.
No,
But I knew
give
what
her
they were
credit.
doing.
No, she did it, and she didn't whine. She didn't do anything. She just finished the drill, and I'm sure underneath her breath she had some thoughts about Tony and I at that time, but she didn't divulge them in front of the kids.
No,
I
I
But it
didn't.
was just the fact that and again the kids saw that was hard. It was difficult, but you deal with it.
You deal with it, but I think also too, as I've gotten older, but when a younger age too, like the technical execution was doubled down to me because hey,
Correct.
if you're gonna land on this, you want to make sure you land right.
I'm
Because if
landing
you
right.
don't,
Yeah.
because my uncle was a coach from Mexico, so a lot of the stuff we had rope, we dive over and then dive under.
Yeah.
So the first thing, obviously, diving over is like making sure you don't land on your elbow, so you don't tear your shoulder up. But also too, like learning how to land on your side, getting that muscle memory, and just getting those like just the bruises on there, and then eventually you get to a nicer field, you know how to like execute it properly. But those fields, I think they serve more of a purpose. I think it's like get through it, but also too of like, hey,
You don't want to hurt
No, but
kid,
that-
land
that-
right.
that's
100%.
No, I
And
agree. I agree.
You won't really notice, I think, at a young age until you start like, okay, I'm inflicting this own pain on myself. I need to turn this around. You know what I mean? So
We trained in New York, trained with this old Italian guy, and if you did something incorrectly and you're kind of grimacing, going, like he goes, "Did that hurt?" And and he goes, "Well, then you did it wrong." And
Exactly.
he's like, "Yeah, you know what? Yeah, if I have good technique
It
I'm
won't.
going to be okay.
Yeah.
And if you remember Mary Harvey, she gave me a really nice compliment at one point. She said I was the quietest goalkeeper she ever saw because my landings were really good because of exactly what you're describing. I grew up on fields that were not very good, and you had to land quietly, softly,
Yeah.
so you could get up and do it again.
Yeah.
And so I think that it does serve a purpose. It does serve a purpose.
And it's funny. It's just like listening to the stories and those things. I know where my coach, like where the things I've learned throughout my career come into my coaching. I do. Like just from that conversation about like landing and quiet and this, and like I think about that, like it was brought up at Tony's memorial. That same story was as well, about the front smothers and everything. And but it's true, and it's like those things follow you, but they also create the person that you are today. So I do know that.
Yeah.
There's some other stories too, but yeah. we'll move on.
So Bill, we want to talk about this. I think, one of the things that your background is so absolutely fascinating in regards to the different aspects of the game that you've been involved with.
Mhm.
From not just, working traditional goalkeeping, but also from the sports psychology background,
Mhm.
from the sports science background and everything like that. And one thing that we've kind of been talking about is kind of like that mind-body connection and kind of the, getting players to be able to move in a certain way based on their mentality and all that. So for maybe some people out there who don't know what we're talking about when we talk about like a mind-body connection, like what is that kind of in your words?
I can reflect a lot on my own experiences and did they serve to confirm or refute some of the research that's out there. And there was a really interesting study on it was in Holland. They have eye tracking devices, which is kind of like, I don't know, people are too old to remember Clockwork Orange, the movie Clockwork Orange, but a classic film when they tracked and they forced the guys to view certain things. So they can track and see what you are actually looking at and for how long. And so they will look at, for penalty kicks, goalkeepers, what are they looking at? What are they watching? And so if I said to you, okay, a successful and unsuccessful goalkeeper, penalty kick taking up, who looks at the ball longer, the unsuccessful or the successful goalkeeper? Well, the answer is the unsuccessful goalkeeper watches the ball more. The successful goalkeeper is watching the body and seeing how this player is approaching the ball, how they move towards the ball, and they see all this other information, this peripheral, if you will, information.
Right.
Which goalkeeper reacts first, the successful or the unsuccessful goalkeeper? The unsuccessful goalkeeper reacts first because they see and they're going to go. The successful goalkeeper is waiting as long as I'm not going to move until the absolute very last second so I can take in all that other kind of data before I decide that player's shooting to my left, that player's shooting to my right. And so that this information that I'm taking in is going to dictate my movement based on that. Make sense?
No, it makes absolute sense. I mean, it's the way I handle PKs and everything like that. And you have to give yourself, what Tony's saying was leave late, arrive early, or what, it's that mentality of it. It's give yourself as much information as you can, put yourself in the right position, but then make your decision. Because if you are going too early, and we see it in all different facets of goalkeeping, not just in the PK, whether it's coming for a through ball, whether it's, coming from one side of the goal to the other and setting, are you going too early? Are you assuming? Are you doing things? And you have to be able to give yourself that time for everything to process.
I think that's the big one too, is from the coaching side, these like this concept, it makes sense, but also too for me, and he's told me this watching me coach, it was like sometimes you need to let the player develop their own understanding of what you're trying to coach. So this concept of like, making sure you're not watching the ball, but watching the player, and then leaving a little bit later, it's like they're not going to get it perfectly done on the first try, but you have to give them the opportunity to continue to fail and then learn. And I feel like for me as a coach, sometimes it's always like they fail. I want to give them my perception of what I saw versus like, okay, I'm going to give you the platform now. You need to process what just happened. And then little by little, if you keep failing, just understand why versus failing and then listening to what I say, repairing it for a half second. Right. And then next time you're around, you're by yourself. My voice isn't there to lend you the hand. So I think it's important, like you talk about there, just like the psychology of they tried it, it didn't work. It's not a failure. It's let's keep moving forward. With that.
When I work with goalkeepers, the first thing I do is I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm going to say, if you could do it over, what would you do differently? And if they have an idea, they say, oh, yeah, I should wait a little bit to see what spot on, man. That's right. Yeah, do that. But if they go, man, I don't know. I thought I did everything I could. Then I'll jump in and I'll say, you know what? Maybe try watching the hips and watch their feet where their support foot sets and go from there. And you can try and guide them if they don't know. Now, it's easy to just say, okay, if you would do it over, what would you do? But it's inherent on me then to have the correct methodology, the correct information at hand. If you spout it out in your own words, magic. That means you know it. It's great. If you don't know it, I need to be able to assist and have you get through that and come to that conclusion.
So I had this conversation last night, and and I guess there's no right or wrong, but I was kind of thinking about the fact that, and I brought this up with somebody. I said, hey, if a player responds to me with my language or how I said something to them, my concern is they don't understand it, is that they're basically regurgitating information and they're just trying to get me to think that they're correct as opposed to really having a grasp of it. And this person actually said, well, what's wrong with using the same language? What if that's the language you use when you're talking to them? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I'd like to say I play two sides of the coin with that. I think my background is I've been involved with just in a wonderfully diverse group of people throughout the course of my life. And I think I can identify, okay, this is how I should address in this situation. This is the hat I wear in this situation. This is the hat I wear, the language I speak in this situation. And I've been in, basketball facilities in Staten Island and the Bronx, and I've been in soccer fields in South Africa. So I've got a very diverse background in terms of being able to speak and match up. However, if worse comes to worse, I'm going to say my information and present it as clearly as I can. And then it's up to you have to meet me and say, okay, you're explaining it the best you can. I am able to understand you. And then I can rephrase it into my own tongue or my own vernacular if I like, but I'm not going to just cater 100% to people all the time. I think it's good for people to make an investment, of saying, I'm going to hear what you say and I'm going to put it in my own words. That's going to make it mine. Instead of, I think you mentioned earlier, it's like regurgitate what I say. No, I mean, that's fine. If you're presenting to a certain audience, yeah, maybe you want to use that vernacular. Maybe you want to use that terminology. If you're presenting it to somebody else, you present it differently.
Yeah, I think that's, as you said there, it's important for me, at least. I'm trying to internalize everything you're saying to like how I would kind of use it in my own practice.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think my default is to solve it for them and give them my answer. Like you said, you have to have that expertise in the back of your mind just to help them unwind and untangle their thought process and to help them get to where they need to get to. I think sometimes that becomes my default. And before I give them the opportunity or the platform and stage to really develop their own thought process, I give it to them right away. And then, I mean, I probably walk out of there thinking I did a great job. But I think in the grand scheme of things, that player walks away kind of going, well, Omar explained it to me. And if he's not there, I have no idea why. Like, my why. So I think that's the process that I'm trying to as a coach is.
But then you can reflect and just prompt them back. Okay, tell me what I said again. And then if they regurgitate it, no. Tell me in your own words, what did I say again?
Yeah.
And then you just double check that they paraphrased that into their own thoughts, into their own vernacular, their own style, whatever.
I think that's the hard part too. I'm sorry, I'm like hijacking this, but it's like it's just like a therapy session.
It's okay, go Omar.
But I think that's like the big one for me personally is you go from, for me at least, I draw my session out and I kind of just go, I'm going to go from A to B to C because it makes sense in terms of like progressions versus A, let's have a rehash about what we just talked about. Then B, let's talk about that as well. And then C, let's talk about the whole thing. So sometimes I go from A to B to C without really giving the opportunity to the players to really digest it and not regurgitate it, but just, reflect on it and verbally try to articulate what they experienced. And I think yesterday with Jill Lloyd, and she was saying that it's called like a cold call. It's like a saying that somebody uses where you say, hey, I'm going to ask at one of you at any time something that was difficult, something that you enjoyed. And I forgot the last part. But like they're always processing because at any moment I could ask you, Bill. I could ask Saskia. I forgot your name for a second. Or I can ask Mike.
How many years has it been?
and each person is processing that information just in case. So
I just want to let you know, Omar, that Bill will be billing you for this session.
Yeah, I know. Right? It's not our session apparently.
Saskia and I were just going to go leave. We were just going to go
chilling. I was like,
should we just go grab dinner?
You forgot my name. He was talking so long.
Is there anything you want to add to Omar's?
I just feel that it's not. If it depends on the age group, and if you feel that they are using your terminology, I think the important thing is if they're using it in the right context and they're using it when. Like, it's okay if they use your same verbiage, but are they using it right? Is it like, okay, why did this go wrong? And they're just like, oh, well, I didn't do this, and they're just throwing that out because I think that's the right answer, or do they really know if it's the right answer? And that's the more important thing. I don't care if you use the same words I use. Are you using it at the right time? Are you using it in the right context?
Well, and I think one of the things with this is that there's a certain amount of digestion that goes on with these ideas. I'm going to maybe prefer a little bit more towards maybe some more academic things with this, because that's my current mode of thinking. That's what I'm processing it with it. But it's sometimes if I'm teaching a sports psychology class, I can go over a different thing every single day. And at the end of each day, you can spit back to me what we talked about, but you don't really understand it. You haven't had time to digest it and process it. There was a guy,
it's just
Saskia or somebody. It was a Russian poet who was rescued from a gulag in the Soviet Union. They brought him into Colombia.
Oh, that guy, of course.
Yeah. And he's running the doctoral program. And the doctoral students come in. He says, okay, the first thing, you must memorize these poems. And the doctoral students are going like, we're doctoral students. We don't memorize things. He says, you don't memorize, you get no doctorate. So they go, okay, we'll memorize it. But what they realize is when they had the poems memorized, they'd be on a corner waiting for the light to change, and they're thinking about the poem. And they're driving in the car and, waiting at the light, and they're thinking about the poem. And that, by memorizing it, it's you could say it's a crude method, but he forced them to really spend the time to think about it and digest it and process it. And so I think that there is a certain time, I can give you all the information you want in the next 24 hours and then write me a check. But it's like, you won't know it because you haven't really processed this much. I could segue off now into, I just finished up a study.
We used to do it in school. We used to have quant methods at Rutgers, and we were allowed a cheat card, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we were allowed a cheat sheet. First test, it was one little page. The next page was a page and a half. Next page was a big cheat. The amount of time it took me to write as small as I possibly could on that cheat card, all the equations, I never had to look at that cheat card once, because my focus on that was like, I color coordinated it. I did everything. I had everything. Yeah, I never had to pick that card up because I worked so hard and I just kept memorizing it. I kept,
And then you really hate the class because I spent all that time on that card.
On the stamp card. I never
putting it up on eBay. Yeah.
My concern, just playing devil's advocate here, Bill, is that my concern is that somebody might hear this and they might misconstrue this as like, oh, give this information to the players, but like you need to explain to them why.
But that was my point before. Yeah. It's you can regurgitate, you can memorize anything you want. You can regurgitate. Are you using it in the right time, the right context, and for the right reason? Yeah. And that's the most important thing. Why? Yeah. Why?
Yeah. And I want to ask you, Bill, because Dan Abrahams, he always talks about language and how you can use language to instill an actual physical response, a visceral response from people based on the language that you're using. Like, is that something that you feel is very important as a young coach, is to understand how to use your language to get the right movements out of your players if you want them to be passive, if you want them to be offensive, that sort of thing?
Yeah. What's the parental guidance on this podcast? How colorful can I get?
No, you can say whatever you want.
No. But again,
we can slap an E on if we need to.
I made a point. I'm never really profane. I'm not going to say never, but I rarely would I use any sort of profane language in front of my team. And I knew that